Today is April 29, 2026. My name is Rob Carter of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. Well, a lot of things have been going on in the news the last half week, from the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner at the Washington Hilton on Saturday. A man's been arrested for shooting. His plan was to probably shoot the president and or members of the cabinet or other officials in the government. So he's in a heap of trouble, this man. And it's hard to believe that this is the third attempt. The first one obviously was the biggest because it actually hit him in the ear. The second one was at the president's golf course, where the man was stalking President Trump. And now this one here in Washington. So it's the third assassination attempt. And the man probably, if he had a chance, he would have shot Trump and or members of the administration, like in the cabinet. So we'll see how this story plays out, but he's going to spend many, many years in prison, I'm sure. Today, talk about two big stories. The first one is the bigger of the two, I feel. The United States Supreme Court this morning ruled in a case called First Choice Women's Resource Centers. I don't have the full title of the opinion in front of me, but this is a story that I talked about several months ago. I think even back in 2025. A pregnancy care center in New Jersey had 5 branches throughout the state, and they were operating like most pregnancy care centers do. Services for free, you know the story. And the Attorney General of New Jersey subpoenaed this pro-life pregnancy care network called First Choice for a variety of things. They needed to provide donor lists. They needed to provide employee records to see who was employed. And these were records that had to go back 10 years. And First Choice Women's Resource Centers filed a lawsuit challenging the right that the state of New Jersey had to subpoena these documents from the pregnancy care center. And the court ruled 9-0 unanimously. How often do you say that in one sentence? Ruled unanimous in the same sentence. Well, it happened, which means that it wasn't a 6-3 decision. It was 9-0. Even the 3 liberal justices recognized that this was a violation of this faith-based pregnancy care center's First Amendment rights of not only free speech, but of free exercise of religion. Okay. It's kind of complicated. It says the opinion was narrow, finding that First Choice is now able to sue about these petitions in federal court, not dealing with this in the state court. Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote the majority opinion, agreed with First Choice, saying that state-issued subpoenas breached the First Amendment. Quote, an official demand for private donor information is enough to discourage reasonable individuals from associating with a group. It is enough to discourage groups from expressing dissident views. So imagine, you're donating to Kalamazoo Right to Life or a pregnancy care center in Kalamazoo County, and your organization is being forced to provide your name and maybe your address and your phone number and your email address to the state so they can check up on you. Now, that may discourage you from wanting to make a donation again. And you multiply that by 100, 200, 1,000 potential donors, and you're going to run the pregnancy care center out of business because they rely on donations. Their services are free to women in need, whether it's pregnancy care, pregnancy issues, or baby clothes for the future, furniture, things like that. So the court recognized that this subpoena would discourage potential donors. Okay. Let's see here. The highest court's majority ruled that Attorney General Platkin, saying his probe did not align with long-standing court precedent. Here again, I'm quoting from Gorsuch. Quote, over and again, we have held those demands burden the exercise of First Amendment rights. Disputing none of these precedents, but seeking ways around them, the Attorney General, this is New Jersey, has offered a variety of arguments. Some are old, some are new, but none succeeds. So this is great news for not just First Choice in New Jersey, but for pregnancy care centers all over the country. It's a warning. Don't go after these groups. They are within their First Amendment rights to minister to women in need. So that is so good. And the fact that it was 9-0 is another big wake-up call to the pro-abortion liberals who are trying to run pregnancy care centers out of business entirely. Okay. The second one is a story that I saw in the news from yesterday. There was a hearing in the House of Representatives, and this Congressman Brandon Gill of Texas, he's becoming one of my I think he's a fairly new congressman, but he's a flamethrower, and he's fearless. He's not necessarily a flamethrower in a disrespectful way, but he gets to the point, and he's like an attack dog. He will not let go when he's at an issue. And he was talking or questioning an American University scholar. What is her name? Jessica Waters. She's a senior scholar at the American University School of Public Affairs, and she's been brought in as a pro-abortion expert talking. And she was the hearing was on the FACE Act, but during his exchange with her, began asking her questions about what type of abortion procedure did she prefer, and first, and then he kind of begins his list. The first kind is called a suction abortion. And then he kind of describes it when the cervix is dilated and a strong suction 29 times the power of a household vacuum cleaner tears the baby's body apart and sucks it through a hose into a container. And then he asks, do you prefer that method? And then she says, I stand by my former testimony. So then he goes on to a second procedure, the more common D&C. And she repeats her statement. I stand by my previous statement. Then he goes on to 2 more abortion methods. And each time he's pressing her, he asks her at the end, do you favor this procedure? Is this your favorite method of abortion? And each time she doesn't give an answer. No, she just goes back to, well, this is not the reason why I was called to testify, and I stand by my former testimony. And there's a man named Nick Craig, a commentator from North Carolina, and he made a comment on X or Facebook or Twitter, and he said, and this is the point that I'm trying to make. This is quoting from him. This is the conversation Democrats refuse to have. It's uncomfortable, it's ugly, but it has to be said. And it's their refusal, Democrats, pro-abortion people, it's their refusal to acknowledge the fact that every abortion method, technique, procedure is barbaric. They talk about abortion as healthcare, reproductive healthcare. And when you throw on the word healthcare or care, it sounds safe, it sounds friendly and compassionate. Healthcare. Who would oppose healthcare? So reproductive healthcare sounds nice. But Gill, Congressman Gill, he describes each one of these procedures and how grisly and barbaric and gruesome Each one of them are. And she refuses to acknowledge it. And the pro-abortion movement at large refuses to answer that question. How is that health care for the baby? Of course, they'll never answer that, because to them the baby doesn't exist in a tangible way. The baby exists only in a theoretical sense, not in a physical sense. They do not want to answer that question because they know they can't. Because if they did answer it, the way a regular human being would answer it, by saying, yes, chopping up a baby in little body parts is barbaric. We don't do that to animals. They would have to acknowledge that. But because they have to defend the pro-abortion orthodoxy, they can't answer the question, and they refuse to answer that question. So, good news. Thank you, Congressman Gill, for putting her on the spot and exposing the barbarity that the pro-abortion side goes through. They twist themselves in a pretzel to avoid answering the questions about how barbaric every abortion procedure really is. It kills the unborn child. With that, I'll let you go. I'll see you next time.